Hey, Sapaholics, this is Isaac from Option.co, where we've helped over 50 clients automate more than 500,000 tasks. And in this video series, I'm breaking down the most common post-purchase workflows I set up for clients when they have a subscription offer. Essentially, after someone buys, what it is that we want to automate. And in the last video, I gave an overview of what those common post-purchase workflows are. I broke down 6 of them, and today we're going to break down the first one, which is the purchase. I'm going to share my screen and we'll replicate one of my latest client apps from scratch so you can see what it's all about. So here we are. As a recap, after purchase, you probably want to grant access to whatever it is that the client needs, update their contact accordingly on your CRM, add them to an automation where they're going to receive emails for retention purposes, and you may also want to update your project management system or database if that's needed for your service delivery, for example. That's pretty common for service businesses. Also, you may want to automate the review invitation. And we're going to talk about all of this coming next. One thing on tools, you might see that next to the steps, I also have logos of certain tools. These are the tools that my last client was using. If you have different tools, I still hope this video serves you. And this is something that I've actually done for other tech stacks, and it's pretty similar. So the checkout page in this case is done with Thrivecart, but if you have a sales team instead, then the trigger might be a deal marked as one is in your CRM, or maybe you're using another checkout page. The idea is the same. Rather than ActiveCampaign, you might be using Go High Level or Owner Pool. Rather than ClickUp, maybe you're using Airtable or Asana. And maybe rather than Trustpilot, your business has a lot more reviews on maybe a Google profile if you're a local business, or maybe somewhere else. The idea is the same, so I hope this serves you anyways. That said, let's go into Zapier and build this from scratch. As you see, I already had a SAP for this because I tested beforehand, but I'm going to create a SAP for you from scratch. I'm going to work under the assumption that you have the applications connected, but if you don't, this is pretty easy to do. And in the sidebar of Zapier, there's a tab called My Apps, and you click on the button that's called Add Connection, and they guide you through the process. So it's typically pretty easy and something that anyone can do. So as you can see, Zapier tells you that you have trigger and you have action. You can add as many actions as you want, but of course, only the first step is the trigger. In this case, we're assuming that the first trigger is the purchase and that we use Thrivecart for that. So I'm going to click on Thrivecart as the app. I'm going to click on product purchase as the event. And within product purchase, I'm going to select a product. In the options to filter out which specific product you want, you can actually come here and select specific product. In this case, I created a testing product for the purposes of this video, but you could also filter by pricing option. So if you have a monthly versus an annual subscription, you may want to do different actions depending on that. If you had a specific sale, maybe on Black Friday, if people are using a specific coupon code, you could use that. You could also filter by affiliate. So if it's a particular affiliate and you have a deal with them where people get a bonus when they buy from them, is something you could also look into. But for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to select the first product. And typically this is what my clients need exclusively. Now that we have this selected, let's just click on continue, and this screen will prompt us to test the trigger, and it's going to pull up the last sale, in this case, that has come in, the last data point that has come into this particular system. So I'm going to click on continue, and we'll see the next step. Following our flow chart, the next step would be to grant access to Kajabi, assuming that you're using that, for example, to have your offer over there. So I'm going to pick Kajabi as the tool. The event will be grant and access to an offer. I'm using a test account for this, and I'm going to simply click here on what are the fields required. We have site, we have offer, we have member name. This is where you're going to start using previous data points. So for example, the customer first name and the customer last name coming from Thrivecart, and you're going to put your email. Lastly, you can see that there's external user ID required. There are two two things I suggest to do here. Either you can use the customer email as the ID because the customer email is unique anyway, or you can use the invoice ID. The client that I helped set this up actually had the email, and I think is a good way to have an unique identification for your customers within Kajabi, because if you need to use that external user ID later, you'll know what to use. Let's put this confirmation email as no, and let's click continue. So the next action for this particular client was actually inviting a member to his Circle community. Unfortunately, Circle doesn't have a free account, and I don't want to mess up with my client's account. So I'm simply going to show you what we did. The Zapier integration with Circle has an invite member action, and you would select the community you want to add the user to. You want to input the email of the user. In password, you have two options. Either you leave the password empty, and what you do later is you can't skip the invitation email because the invitation email is what's going to prompt them to set up their password. Alternatively, you can simply set up the password as the email or just a random password. And what you would do then is that you can skip the invitation email, but in whatever email you sent them, or for example, in this client's case, in his course, he had a lesson that was about the community, and he simply say, use this password and the email that you used to sign up, and make sure to change it as soon as you're in. So that should be a quick way to invite a member to a Circle community in case that's relevant for you. The next step is to update their contact on ActiveCampaign. So we're going to simply select ActiveCampaign as the app. We're going to select create or update contact. You will not want to use create contact or update contact. And here's the reason why. The reason why create or update exists is so that it's to avoid duplicates, essentially. If the contact already exists, the system will update it. And if it doesn't exist, it will create it. So that's just a smart way to avoid duplicates and to avoid errors. So that's what I will encourage you to do. In action, you will pick a list. In this case, let's just see through the list that we have available here. Let's select clients. For email address, we're going to put the email address that the client used to sign up. And here we can put the first name and the last name. Lastly, you want to add a tag. In this case, I like to use something like this, where you simply suggest, hey, this is a member that signed up. And this is, for example, the payment option that you use. Let's click on continue. And I'm going to skip this test and add another action. The next step is to add or update your project management system or database. And this is in the scenario that you need to update that a new client came into the team, so that if there's any team member that needs to do something about it, it's clear to them what it is that they need to do. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a task template on ClickUp, and we're going to see how to duplicate a task off of that template and update its custom fields. Here, how that's done. Actually, you have no option natively in the Zapier integration to create a task from template. So we'll have to rely on using the API for this particular case. When you have to use an API within Zapier, what you need to know is that you'll use a webhook, and you'll have to find the endpoint that you want to use for this particular action. So you can see here that within task templates, you have create task for template, and that's the action we want. They give us a URL that we're going to copy and we're going to paste here after we select the webhooks by Zapier and after we select post as the method. You might have noticed that in the API documentation, they're going to tell you what method the request is. So it's post in this case, and I'm going to paste the URL. You're also going to notice that the URL has two variables, and here's how you get those. I'm going to open up my ClickUp account, my personal ClickUp account, and I know that at the top, the URL structure is team ID, and after LI, which stands for list, is the list ID. So assuming I want to create it here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this list ID for that number. Now, what about the template ID? The template ID is a little bit more hard to get, but here's how I do it. Assume that you have a task that you want to duplicate. And for the purposes of this, let's actually add a couple more tasks. Let's say we have subtasks. Okay. And let's assign those tasks. Okay, you have a task and you have a set of subtasks. Okay, now with 5 tasks, what I will do is I actually go ahead and click on these 3 dots, template center, and I'm gonna save it as a template just to do it from scratch here. Testing task template, I'm gonna call it that. I'm gonna click on save. It's gonna take a second or two. And what I can do now is I click on more options again, template center, and I go browse templates. I'm gonna see the task I just created, and if I click on it and I click on share, I'm gonna get the option to click here to have a public link, and that public link has the task, the template ID included. Okay, the template ID is the one that follows the task right here. So I'm simply going to update this template ID. Now, something else you want to do is that the authorization is there. In this case, it's quite simple. You simply have to have an authorization header. And in the value, you want to have your API key. Your API key, if you're using something like ClickUp, you go to the settings, you go to apps, and you're going to see the API key here. You copy it, put it here, and you're going to continue. In this case, I'm gonna test this one right now, just because I want to make sure it's working. Looks like it's not, because it needs a name. Name, and let's just say service delivery for, I'm gonna say Isaac, or first name, space last name, and in parentheses, let's use email address person. Let's click on continue, and now let's test it. Okay, now that we tested and we can see that it was successful, one of the things it's often required when you create a task is you might have custom fields in that task. It's very helpful sometimes to fill out those custom fields. And for example, in the list I'm currently working, there are 2 custom fields. Those 2 custom fields are full name and email. So I'm going to go ahead and update the task I just created to fill those out. In this case, I am going to use the ClickUp native integration, and I simply choose the event update task. I'm going to click on continue, select my account, select my workspace, select the task, which is the task I just created. So I'm going to pick the ID from the previous step. And you can see here, it says only used for custom fields. You're going to specify the space, the folder, and the list for you to be able to fill out the custom fields. I'm going to show you how that looks like now. I'm going to select operations. And when I scroll all the way down, I'm going to see custom fields, and you can see email and full name. If I had 10 custom fields, those all 10 will show up here. So I'm going to simply click the customer email, customer full name. And you know what? Let's actually add another one just to show you how that may look like if you got to the step and you want something else. Money. Let's do purchase price. Okay, we want to refresh fields. You see that now, and there should be a value here that tells you how much the client spent. Order total. Let's test this action. And you can see now that if I open up this one that has name, if I open up this one that has first name, last name, and email, should be able to see all 3 values populated in the task. Okay. Lastly, imagine you want to make sure you ask for a testimonial automatically in the coming days. What you want to do is you want to set up a delay. That delay is going to vary. That delay is going to vary depending on your business. If you're a content business or a membership business, probably 7 to 14 days would be enough. If you're a service business, you might want to wait for a month, or maybe you may want to set up a separate workflow where your trigger is the completion of a task. And that's actually the way I've done it for another client, where he has essentially an accounting firm that's relevant for the conversation, but essentially whenever the project is completed, he goes and requests a testimonial from their clients. And it's important that that automation, when you have it on your CRM, you only allow it to trigger once. That's something you can do within ActiveCampaign. For the purposes of this video, let's just do delay 4, and let's do something very short, like 5 minutes. Let's click continue. And lastly, let's do the Trustpilot thing. Although Trustpilot has a Zapier integration, I recently helped a client and we had to use a different method, okay? If you have a Trustpilot business account and you go to manage reviews, you'll see, if you go to get reviews, you'll see invitation methods. If you click there and scroll all the way down, you'll see a Trustpilot automatic invitation. You're gonna click on that, and here's what they're gonna tell you. If you send an email and you include this email address in the BCC, that's gonna trigger the invitation for your client. And what you can do then, if you go to settings and time and delivery, you can set up however many days after the order there is that you want to trigger this. So as I said earlier, I'm gonna use 0 because I want to test as quickly as possible, but you may want to use somewhere between 7 to 30 days, depending on your business. So having copied that email, let's go back here and let's actually have a simple Gmail step where you're going to send an email to a client. You're going to send the email to the person. And as discussed earlier, you want to have this email in the BCC so this person gets invited. From there, up to you what you want to say. What I would probably recommend you say, something simple, tell us how we did. You can also have, for example, something like, you thank them, thanks for your purchase. You're about to receive an invitation from Trustpilot to leave a review. Please reply to this email if there's anything you could have done better. Just an example of what you could say to maybe encourage the client to reply back if they have a negative experience. So maybe they don't go to Trustpilot and say that, but without necessarily coming as too disingenuous, right? So I'm going to click on continue. I'm going to skip the step. And technically, this SAP is done. Now it's time to test the system. So I'm going to publish this SAP. Make sure it's turned on. And I already have the checkout page here ready to, quote unquote, make the purchase. Okay, so we're going to come here and let's do B, March 10, 2023. B, just so it's different from the test I've done today, I'm gonna put a test data here. I'm gonna click on complete order. I'm gonna complete the order. Now let's see. We'll see in the backend in a few seconds if the Zapier ran, if the access was ran under Kajabi, if the tag was applied to ActiveCampaign, if the task was created, and the invitation in Trustpilot happened. Let's check it out. So let's see. Let's open up the SAP history. And as you can see, there's a waiting. Of course, I set up 5 minutes, so we're probably going to have to wait to see that email come in a second. Go into Kajabi, we're going to see that this particular product or offer has a couple members. If we go and look at what those members are, we're going to see testing live as one of them, which is with the email that we're just testing. If we go into ActiveCampaign now and we see this client list, we're going to notice that we have this testing live person right here. So if we click on that, we're going to notice the text there, and the automation was started. I actually didn't show you the automation, but let me take a second to show you that right now of how you would set that up. In that automation, essentially there's two simple things. The tag, when it's added, starts the automation, and the tag, when it's removed or when it doesn't exist, ends the automation. The idea is that here you can add this person and send as many emails that you want, but when they refund or cancel or their payment fails, which we're gonna cover in the coming videos, and we remove this tag, they automatically exit the automation. And actually, that's something we can test right now. This person entered the automation 3 minutes ago. If I go ahead and remove the tag of this person, it should, within a couple of seconds, tell me that it exited the automation because it reached the goal. So it took a while, it took like 5 or 6 minutes, but you can see that it was completed automation, and it says reached an automation goal. So it might take 5 to 10 minutes. Similarly, there's a little bit of a delay. That makes sense, but you can confirm that that has worked. If we go into ClickUp now, should be able to see the service delivery for testing live, which get custom fields filled out. And we should also be able to see that email come in about Trustpilot. Let's check that out. Let's actually verify whether the email was successfully sent. What that might have to do with it. We can see here one of the tests I did with this particular email address. Perfect. The email was sent seemingly, so it should be a matter of time before, well, I can actually see the invitation here that tells me how many stars did you give Opter.co. This is with another of the email I tested just before this one. I wonder if there's something to do about the fact that I used the same, technically the same email with differences here. That might have something to do with it, or it's just a matter of time before that other Trustpilot invitation comes in. But at least with this one, you can see that, well, it's working. So that should end this video. I hope that that helps you. Your tech stack might be different, but the process is the same. Leave me a comment below if you have any questions, and have a nice one. See you in the next video.